I never believed in the paranormal. As a nurse, I've always relied on science, facts, and evidence to guide me through the challenges of my job. But there's something about working the night shift in a hospital that makes you question everything you think you know. It wasn't until one particular night that I, a seasoned pediatric nurse, experienced something that would forever change my outlook. The pediatric ward had always been my favorite place to work. I loved the innocence, the energy, the way the children could light up even the darkest corners of the hospital with their laughter. I admired their resilience, how they could endure so much pain yet find the strength to smile through it all. But that night, a chill crept into my bones, a chill that no warm blanket or reassuring smile could shake off. It was late, probably around 2 a.m., when the doors to the ER burst open, and the paramedics wheeled in a boy. He couldn't have been more than 5 years old, but his body was so small, so fragile, and marked with bruises that told a silent story of something horrible. His pulse was faint, and he was barely breathing. My instincts kicked in, and I rushed to help stabilize him. The room was a flurry of activity, doctors and nurses moving in sync, working to keep him alive. But something felt off from the start. As I stood there, trying to get N4 into his tiny arm, the monitor beside me flickered, then went blank. I heard a faint whisper, like someone calling my name, but when I looked up, the room was eerily silent, save for the machine's beeping. I shook it off. It's just exhaustion, I told myself. These shifts can mess with your mind. But the whispers didn't stop. As we worked, there were flashes of cold, like the air itself was watching us, waiting. Equipment malfunctioned, first the monitor, then the ventilator, and we were forced to switch everything manually. The doctors exchanged uneasy glances, but we all pushed through, focused on saving the boy. We tried everything. His body was so fragile, his heartbeat so weak. For hours, we fought to keep him here, in this world. But eventually, his heart gave out. There was nothing more we could do. I felt the weight of his passing settle in the room, heavy and oppressive. I stood there, staring at his still face, wondering what his life had been like, who he had been, and how he had ended up in that bed. That's when the temperature dropped sharply. I felt it again, the presence. It was so cold that my breath fogged in the air. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw something, no, someone. A small figure standing by the door, watching me. My heart pounded in my chest, and my legs felt frozen to the ground. The boy. It was the boy, standing there, just as he had been on the bed, but there was no life in his eyes. I blinked, and he was gone. Shaken, I tried to brush it off. I'm tired, I reasoned. The stress was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something was different. Something about that boy wasn't just tragic, it was otherworldly. A few days passed, and I tried to forget about the whispers and the strange malfunctioning equipment. I tried to bury the memory of the boy who had died in my care. But the hospital had a way of reminding you. Late one night, I was talking to one of the older nurses, Martha, who'd been working in pediatrics for years. She was the kind of person who knew every story, every piece of hospital history. I mentioned the boy. She looked at me, her face going pale. "What did you say his name was?" she asked quietly. "I don't know," I admitted. "They brought him in so fast, he was already in critical condition." Martha hesitated, then told me something that sent chills down my spine. Years ago, a boy just like the one you described was brought into this hospital. Same age, same bruises, same everything. He died on the operating table. They say his spirit never left. My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "They say he's trapped," she whispered. "Reliving his death, over and over again. Some nurses say they've seen him." I never believed it, but, her voice trailed off. Suddenly, everything clicked. The whispers, the malfunctioning equipment, the cold presence in the room, it was him. That little boy. He wasn't just another patient. He was the ghost of a child who had never found peace. I couldn't shake the feeling of sadness and guilt. He had been waiting, stuck in some kind of loop, unable to move on. I felt a strange sense of responsibility, as though I had somehow failed him, not just in trying to save his life, but in giving him the peace he needed. After that night, I couldn't look at the pediatric ward the same way. Every time I walked by, I half expected to see him standing in the doorway, watching, waiting. Maybe he's still there, lingering in the corners of that hospital, waiting for someone to hear him, to help him find peace. I don't know if I'll ever stop thinking about him. And now, when I hear the whispers in the quiet of the night, I wonder if it's him trying to reach out, trying to say something. Maybe someday, I'll understand. But until then, his story, his face, will haunt me,